In this project, we're going to get started with word processing. We're going to be using a program called LibreOffice. To start LibreOffice, you may use a shortcut on the desktop, or if you're a Windows 10 user, you can press the Start key and select the LibreOffice shortcut from there. When you start LibreOffice, you'll open the Welcome screen. And the Welcome screen gives you access to all the components within the LibreOffice collection. The database option, the math option, the drawing option, the Impress presentation option, which is very similar to PowerPoint, Calc spreadsheet, which is very similar to Microsoft Office Excel. We're going to focus on creating a writer document, and this is similar to Microsoft Word, but in my opinion, better for a number of reasons, not the least of which LibreOffice is free. So let's start a new writer document. And now what we want to do is we want to set the user interface. Now it's possible that the user interface on your system has been set to the new tabbed option. The tabbed option provides you a ribbon style menu with lots of options on each tab setting. This is excellent for experienced users, but for beginners, which I assume is the audience for this video, it's better to use View, User Interface, Standard Toolbar. This keeps life a little easier as we become familiar with the user interface. Next, I'm going to select from the menu bar Tools, Options, View, and I'm going to check the icon style. If you're running Windows 10, you'll see quite a collection of different icon styles. If you're running the Linux version or the Mac version of LibreOffice, you may have a different collection of icon styles. In my example here, I'm going to be using the elementary icon style. And because I want things to be as visible as possible on the video, I'm setting the icon size to extra large. Once I've adjusted these settings, I will select OK. And now you see that we have a new open document with the standard toolbar user interface. I also want to check to see if the sidebar over here on the right side of the display is on. In my example, it is. If you do not see that, you should select View, Sidebar, and toggle it on. This is a toggle, by the way. If you select it when it's on, you'll turn it off. When you select it when it's off, you'll turn it on. Let me go over to the sidebar. And notice that there are a number of different options in the sidebar here. We're going to focus on the properties option of the sidebar. And you'll see how we can use these as we get into creating a new document. When we start a new LibreOffice Writer document, the title bar shows us that we're running LibreOffice Writer, and it will by default create a document named Untitled 1. We will change that before this project is finished. There's one other part of the user interface that I'd like to briefly discuss, and that is something called formatting marks, and that's a toggle. Formatting marks are basically non-printing characters. Each time you press the Enter key, you create a new paragraph, and in word processing, a paragraph may have several sentences, may have one sentence, may have one word, or it may have no words at all, but the paragraph symbol will indicate that there is a paragraph there, even if it has no words. There are some other non-printing characters. Let me just give you an example. I'm going to first toggle the formatting marks off, and then I'm going to do a few secret things here. I'm going to hit the Enter key a few times. Maybe press the space bar a little while. And if the formatting marks are toggled off, it looks like I have a blank page. As a matter of fact, this page is not blank at all. It has a number of characters that do not print. Let me toggle the formatting marks back on and you'll see them. So here there's a paragraph symbol, 3 empty paragraphs. On this line, there's 1, 2, 3 tab key presses, and then the enter key was pressed. Here's another empty paragraph. In this line, the space bar was pressed a number of times, and then the enter key was pressed. Some users get surprised and or frustrated when they print a document and the stupid printer prints out 1 or more blank pages. Well, it turns out that those pages aren't blank at all. They have some non-printing characters on them. The rule of thumb is that you should always keep the formatting marks toggle turned on so you can see exactly what's going on in your document. Okay, now it's time to start entering some text in this project. And by the way, I'm going to be following very closely the printed version of this project. There are instructions on the YouTube page that show how you can obtain this document. It's available through Amazon, Borders, Google Books, Books A Million, and you may want to have a copy of that so that you can follow along with the instructions in print as we go through the tutorial. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that there's a difference between using the computer as an electric typewriter or an old electric typewriter and using the computer as a word processor. One big difference is that you only use the carriage return. That is, you only press the enter key when you come to the end of a paragraph. The word processing system automatically wraps all the words when it runs out of space at the end of a line, and when you press the enter key, a new paragraph will be started. A little later, you'll see how to change the font used in paragraphs. For now, let's just enter a few sentences. I've gone ahead now and I've entered the paragraphs suggested in the document that accompanies this video. You can enter this or any other text you like. The thing to remember is that when we're word processing, we don't hit the carriage return or the enter key an extra time to put space between the paragraphs. The paragraph styles will take care of this automatically. You'll notice that the non-printing character for carriage return or the enter key or end of paragraph is shown. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. I have on my display right now 3 different paragraphs, and the spacing is not very good. Now, most of you who have done any typing on a computer at all are familiar with the ability to change the font and the size, or things like bold or italic or underline. What you might not be familiar with, and what is going to be stressed in this project, is the concept of paragraph styles. Every paragraph in a document will have a style, and it's shown here in this area. Notice if I place the cursor in any paragraph, the paragraph styles will show me what style is being used, and in this case the default paragraph style is going to be used. I'm going to use a trick to select all of the text that I have entered so far, and the trick is Edit, Select All. Notice that there's a shortcut for Edit, Select All. This is one that you need to memorize because it's going to be very important. Control+A. So let me do that. I can put the cursor in any place in the document, hold the control key down, press the letter A, and you can see now that all of the text in the document has been selected. Now I'm going to change the paragraph style from the default paragraph style to something called text body. Watch what happens. Notice that all of a sudden there is space between each paragraph. Let me just deselect this by clicking away so nothing is selected. The difference between the default paragraph style and the text body style is, among other things, the space between paragraphs. You have the power to control the font, the size, and the space between paragraphs by designing custom paragraph styles, and before long you'll learn how to do that. Before we go ahead, this is a good time to show you how to control the text cursor within a document. I'm going to move the mouse cursor to some random place and left click or select. Now you may notice, or you should notice, there's a flashing text cursor at that point. You need to practice several methods of precisely controlling where this text cursor is. You can always just click the mouse someplace and try to put it where you want it, but when you want a precise location, here are several tricks. First, use the cursor control keys on the keyboard. I'm going to press the cursor control up arrow, and notice what happens with the text cursor. It jumps up. What happens if I press the down arrow? The text cursor jumps down. If I press the right arrow, I can go one character at a time to the right, or if I press the left arrow, I can jump one character at a time to the left. So these cursor control arrows are very useful in precisely placing the cursor within the text. There are a couple more tricks. I'm going to press, well, first of all, notice where the cursor is flashing right now. Watch what happens when I press the home key. See what happened? The cursor jumped to the beginning of the current line. Watch what happens when I press the end key. Do you see what happened? The cursor jumped to the end of the current line. Now there's another trick. I'm going to hold the control key down and press the end key. Watch that cursor. Notice that it jumped to the very end of the text in the document. Hold control end and it will jump to the end. Hold control home and the cursor jumps to the very beginning of the document. You should pause this video right now, and if you haven't entered some text into your document, enter some, and then practice precisely controlling the cursor. Hopefully you've practiced precisely controlling the cursor a little bit, and you should have memorized these different tricks. Control home will move the cursor to the very beginning of the document. I'm going to press the enter key and add a new paragraph to the document at the very top of the document, and then I'm going to type in a title for this document. And with the cursor in that first paragraph, we can observe that the paragraph style in use is text body, but I want to change that, so I have the cursor in that first paragraph. I'll go to the paragraph style box and I will select title and watch what happens. Notice that the font has changed, the size has changed, the alignment has changed when I use the title paragraph style. I could go down here with the cursor in this last paragraph and select title, and it will do the same thing. It will align center, it will change the font. Well, I don't want that. So what I want to do is I want to use a very important tool on this toolbar. Check this out. This says unapply styles. This is an undo tool. Undo is very important. And then it replaces it to the previous settings. Well, now that we've done a little bit of work on this document, we should notice that the document is still named Untitled 1, and we want to change that. So we're going to use File, Save As to create a new name for the document. By the way, you notice when I went to the menu bar, select File, Save As. That's one way to do Save As. There's also an option right here. I can click on this little arrow and say Save As and have the same effect. When I select File, Save As, a window will open up. The Save As dialog box will open up. This gives me an opportunity to choose the location and the title for this document. I don't want to put my document in a folder called This PC Documents. I'm going to change this. So I've jumped ahead and I've changed the location, in the File Save As dialog box. I'm in a folder that I've called Tutorials 2020 Word Processing for Seniors. You see that path is here. And within that folder, I've created a new folder called Practice. And now I'm going to enter a name for this document, and then I will save it. If you want to know where your documents are, you need to take control by using File Save As and select a path. You may even want to create a new folder at some known location for your documents. Now, if I check the title bar, you see I'm still using LibreOffice Writer, but the file name is now called myfirstdocument.odt. Now, before we leave this first project, I want to review a little bit of the user interface for LibreOffice Writer. You've already seen we have the title bar, we have a menu bar, we have tools, and we have this formatting bar, and that will change depending on the context of where your cursor is. More about that in a later lesson. But I want to call your attention to what's going on at the very bottom of the display. The very bottom line in the left corner says that we're on page 1 of 1. It says that we have 167 words and 897 characters. It says we're using the default page style. Well, in a future project, you'll see how to create your own custom page styles. It says we're using English, and over here there's an area where we can choose the page view. Right now we're using the single page view. We could use multiple page view, or we could use book view, and you'll see how to use those in a later project. This area here is the display zoom control. Right now we're displaying at 81%. If I click on that number, I could change that to 100%. Okay, that did not change the size of the font being used. It only changed how things are shown on the display. Let me go down and use the zoom slider in this area. I can zoom in by dragging that, and I can zoom out. Or I can choose the little minus sign to zoom out, or I can choose the plus sign to zoom in. This zoom area will allow you to control how things are displayed. And there are times when you want to zoom in and get up close and personal when you're editing a document. Well, now it's time for you to do some practicing. The best way to take advantage of this project is, once you've gotten this far, is to stop everything, get out of LibreOffice Writer, and start at the very beginning and do all of the steps again. Learning how to do word processing is similar to learning how to play the piano. You wouldn't expect to bring a piano into your house and have one lesson, one time, practice one piece, and expect to be able to play Chopin. What you have to do is you have to bite the bullet, and you have to go back through each one of these projects several times so that you really get a good feel for how to use this very powerful word processing software.